Hi, it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back to share another Copic tutorial for Neat and Tangled. This month I'm going to be using the stamp set Mommy, Daddy, and Me, and we're going to get the markers together and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to be using N9, N7, N5, N3, and N1. First we're going to add the shadows to the bear before we add any of the texture. So we're going to start with our N7. And I'm just gonna go right behind his leg, kind of just trace that outline there. And then also on the inside part of his leg onto his body, the leg will be casting a shadow, so we want to add a little bit of shadow there, and all along the bottom of the arm, and along the bottom of the leg, and this arm over here, and also a little bit tucked on his face where his arm's kind of covering part of his face. So now we're just going to blend all those colors out. So I'm going to work my way down. We're going to use N5. And I'm just going to flick, blending out that color and coming up out a little bit more. And all along the bottom of the leg. And along the inside. And with the N5, you're going to want to start coming out a little bit more, filling in part of the bear's body. So right back here, I'm going to add some N5 where this arm is kind of being tucked in away from on the other side of his face. And then you're going to come up over here. And the same thing with the arms, just little flicks, just blending that N7 out slightly. And then I'm going to take my N3 and we're going to do the same thing, just pulling that color out a little bit more. And with the N3, we're also going to move in, filling in the body a little bit more. So this time, since this is a much lighter color than the N7 and N5, I am going to start filling in the leg just a little bit on the inner part here. We want that part to be lighter because it's in front of the rest of his body, but we don't want to lose the highlight. So we'll add the N1 afterwards, but we don't want to get too dark up there. So that way when we add all that texture, we'll be able to really define the bear's fur with it and have all those little hairs that we're going to be creating. So also with the N3, I'm going to shadow the inside part of the mouth. It's going to be a little bit lighter than the shadowed parts on where we had first added the darker colors. So everything on top of the bear is going to be a little bit lighter. And now I'm going to take my N1 and we're just going to fill the rest of the bear in. And we're going to be adding lots of the little hair strands to give it that fur texture. So it's going to be a lot darker than what it is, but these are going to be all of our highlights. And we'll need to add a little bit of a shadow underneath that baby bear up there. So we'll fill in the mouth area. And after you get a good blend, it's always nice just to go back over and get the N3 blended out. And once you have a nice smooth gradient, then just kind of do one swipe over, filling the rest in. Okay, now there's still a harsh line. There's a real big difference between where we started with that N7. So I'm going to go back with one of my middle colors. So I'm going to take my N5 and I'm just going to do a heavy flick. Now that we've got some color on there, it'll be easier to blend out. So do that heavy flick. And now we'll take the N3 and blend out that N5. So go over the N5 area, get that nice blend, and then do kind of a heavy flick into that N1, and it smooths it out for you. And we'll finish blending it through with the N1 in just a second. Alright, so now let's take our N1 again. Now the bear's a little bit more filled in, so we can start adding that fur texture. Before we do, I want to add a little bit of a shadow right around his mouth area. So I want this part to be lighter, so I want it to stand out more. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a little bit of a shadow just right behind there. So just kind of trace that line using your N5. And then I'm going to take my N3 and do little baby flicks, just blending it out. And N1 one more time just to get this blended out up here. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and start adding some, oh, you know what, let's add the shadow underneath the bear. So get your N5 back out and just trace underneath the arm and his little tummy and right up at the top there and just underneath his arm. So that way there's that little bit of a shadow there. So let's take the N3 and blend that out. And then my N1, I'm just gonna do a heavy flick just to get rid of that harsh line, but I do want the shadow just to stay directly underneath that baby bear. So you don't want to pull it through too much, just to soften that harsh line. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the N9 out, and we're going to add some little texture hairs. So we're gonna imagine the fur on the bear and where the direction that the fur goes. What you're gonna do is you're gonna follow the lines that the illustrator has provided. So I'm just gonna make a couple of little flicks following this line, this arch. And then we'll go ahead and just follow this same arch right up here where the foot is. And then we're just gonna have them kind of start to go in the same direction as this line here. So very thin, fine little lines. And then we're gonna do the same thing back here. And I know it's kind of hard to see because there's so much shadow right there. But we're gonna go ahead and still do those lines because you will be able to tell once you get it all on the card that there's no texture there if you don't add those little lines. So I'm just following the bear's back. And then right here, we're gonna follow this the way that the arm is going. So I'm just gonna kind of come up and curve. And then follow this line up in here. until it just starts meeting in with the body. And then we're gonna go ahead and do the face. So when you start the face, we don't want to cover up the eyes since they're small and they're black, just like what we're coloring the bear. So what we want to do is we just want to add a couple of little lines right up in here, right by the nose. So you want to leave a space for the eye that you don't want to color. And you're just going to kind of like a raccoon. You want to just come around the eyes and then start coming out and down like for the cheeks. And then as you get up here, they're just gonna kind of turn to follow the line that's up here for these little hairs. All right, so let's go ahead and do the little foot down here. So now we're going to go back and add some more lines with N5. And you can go over some of the lines that we've already done, but if you just kind of go all over, it really starts to look like fur. Because we've already got our shadows down there. And the thinner you can go, and it's better if you need to practice. You could practice on a scratch piece of paper before you apply it to your image, or you just keep practicing coloring your images over and over. And the lighter each color we get, you don't have to be so precise with where you're putting each of those hair strands, because of course it's going to be lighter, so you're not going to be able to tell. But you still do want to add some more of the lighter colors go throughout the bear, because it will still give that texture. Even with the N1, you'll still see it, and it's still going to give you all those extra little lines. So this can be a little time consuming. Same thing as when you're doing grass, all those little grass blades, but the outcome is always exciting because you spent so much time on this little image and you love the way it comes out. Okay, so now when you get to the N5, we don't want to lose those eyes, so keep that space so that way you have no little hair strands around the eyes, so that way you don't lose them. So start at the nose again. And then we'll add some down here, and there's not a lot of room, so just a little bit. So now we're gonna go with our N3. We might not need the N1 depending on if you like your image the way that it is, or if you wanna kind of play around with it. You can always add more or do another one. You can do the same thing with all different colors. So if you don't have the N's, you can use any of the other grays or browns. You could even make a pink bear. And as you can see it now, once you get with these lighter colors, you don't have to be so precise, but still adding those little extra flicks, they do make a difference. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and go back with my N5, and I'm just going to shadow right around the ears, just underneath, and kind of around that little circle part in the center, just to give it a little bit more texture. And I'm going to take my N3 and just kind of fill in that side just to give it a little more definition. So now I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna add a little bit more shadow to the mouth. So we're gonna get the N5 out, and I'm just gonna come up above the little paws there. And then we'll take the N3 to blend it out. So it really makes the shadow a little more deeper. So now we're gonna go ahead and color the little baby bear. We're not gonna go as dark. We're gonna start with the N5 this time. And we'll add a little bit of shadow just right on the bottom part of him. And a little bit up here around the face. And then we're gonna blend it out with the N3. So just a little bit, kind of, even if you just drag your marker. And we're not gonna give him a whole lot of texture because he is gonna have more of that smoother, fluffier look. So now we're gonna take our N1, fill him in. And now I'm gonna go back with my N5, and I'm just gonna add a couple little dots here and there. Just so he kind of has that furry look, not necessarily hairy like the Papa Bear there. It's just a couple little dots, and then I noticed I didn't color the tail, so I'm just gonna use my N5 to go along the bottom part. And we'll do the same thing for the little tail. And now we'll take the N3, let's fill in the tail. And then again, go back and add a couple little dots with the N3, just so he has that fuzzy texture. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed coloring this super cute stamp set by Neat and Tangled called Mommy, Daddy, and Me. I hope you will join me again next month for another Copic tutorial. Have a great day.